Watching Bacano feels like being handed a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, having the box thrown at your head, and realizing that the picture on the front doesn't actually matter. What matters is the friction of the pieces hitting each other. From its very first moments, the series deposits you into a world that refuses to arrange itself for your convenience. It doesn't pause to shake your hand or offer you a map. It just begins, mid-motion, mid-chaos, mid-collision, and it expects you to keep up. It's a show that treats chaos not as a problem to be solved, but as a rhythm to be danced to. It's violent, it's bloody, and it's populated by some of the most dangerous people you'd never want to meet. And yet, it is one of the most strangely joyful experiences in anime. Most stories are a straight line. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Bacano is a web, and the spider is nowhere to be found. The narrative vaults between 1930, 1931, and 1932 with the frantic energy of a jazz solo. You witness the wreckage of a tragedy before you ever see its cause. You watch a character die in one scene and laugh uproariously in the next. But this isn't done to seem clever or deliberately impenetrable. It's done because the show trusts you. It positions the viewer not as a passive observer, but as an active investigator piecing together a grand case. There is a specific kind of dopamine hit that comes from watching Bacano, that electric moment when two seemingly unrelated timelines finally slam into each other. When you understand, suddenly and completely, that the reason a certain door was locked in 1930 is because of a stray bullet fired in an entirely separate storyline. This structure generates a unique forward momentum. Because the story is constantly leaping between the birth of an immortality elixir, a blood-soaked hijacking aboard a transcontinental train, and a territorial war tearing through the streets of New York, the energy never sags. When one timeline pauses to breathe, another one erupts into screaming. The fractured architecture also produces what might be called narrative vertigo, a thrilling sensation that the world extends far beyond whatever the camera happens to be pointing at. Because we aren't tethered to a single protagonist's path, we're spared the usual scaffolding of the hero's journey. There's no training arc. There's no grinding through setup before the plot deigns to arrive. Everything is already at a rolling boil. We're simply jumping between different pots on the stove. Every background figure seems to carry an entire off-screen life, just as vivid and just as violent as anyone in the central cast. In the world of Bacano, the line separating hero, villain, and supporting player has been completely dissolved. The series is built on the conviction that every single person on screen believes themselves to be the lead in their own private film. Consider Isaac and Miria. In any other series, a pair of eccentric, cheerfully dim thieves would be deployed as comic relief, characters who wander in for 2 minutes to break the tension before wandering back out. Here, they function as the connective sinew holding the entire universe together. Their sheer, weaponized optimism acts as a buffer against the grim brutality of the world pressing in around them. They approach a train heist like a grand theatrical adventure and treat a gang war as though it were a lively social occasion. Even the most unambiguously dangerous characters possess a startling degree of self-determination. They aren't passengers being swept along by fate. They are the ones who laid the tracks in the first place. This makes the world feel genuinely, uncomfortably unpredictable. With no single protagonist shielded by narrative immunity, anyone can be maimed, deceived, or unexpectedly find themselves in possession of the elixir of immortality. The pleasure of the series lies in watching wildly incompatible personalities collide like billiard balls on a table with no walls, never knowing which one will fly off the edge.
That's what Baccano does with its characters. It uses them as charged particles that generate heat when they make contact. The story isn't really about any single sequence of events. It's about the perpetual gravitational pull these people exert on one another, and the spectacular wreckage that follows when their orbits intersect.
Among this constellation of volatile personalities, one figure burns hotter and stranger than all the rest. Claire Stanfield, also known as the Rail Tracer. In most stories, an overpowered character functions as a narrative sedative. Their presence drains tension from any scene because the outcome is never genuinely in question. Yet, when Claire enters a room, or more characteristically, crawls across the exterior of a moving train, the tension doesn't evaporate. It transforms into something crackling and electric. He operates with a certainty so absolute it would read as clinical delusion if he weren't, repeatedly and without exception, completely correct. Claire Stanfield has constructed a personal cosmology that is, depending on your angle, either the most breathtaking arrogance imaginable or an oddly coherent form of liberation. He believes, without hesitation, without qualification, without a single crack of doubt, that the entire world is his dream, that the people surrounding him exist only because he has extended them the courtesy of recognition, that because his own consciousness is the only one he can verify, he is the singular fixed point around which all of reality rotates. The world is my dream. If I die, the world disappears. This worldview doesn't make him a simple powerhouse. It makes him a meteorological event. He doesn't kill out of cruelty or obligation. He does it the way a playwright strikes a scene that no longer serves the production. He is the director, and he has decided it's time to move on. Why does his presence sharpen the energy rather than suffocate it? Because Claire is the ultimate unpredictable element in a story already constructed from chaos. His existence forces every other character into configurations they never would have reached on their own. He is the physical incarnation of the show's own refusal to be predicted. He is articulate, even charming, and he operates by a skewed but internally consistent moral code, which makes him far more compelling than any conventional antagonist. You watch him the way you watch a wildfire, not expecting it to behave, but genuinely unable to look away. That is the correct architecture for an overpowered character, not to cap their abilities, but to make their inner life so strange and layered that raw power becomes almost incidental. The question with Claire is never, can he win? It is always, what does he want, and what will that desire look like when it arrives? So why does a series about immortal gangsters and graphic dismemberment feel so thoroughly, inexplicably alive? Because Baccano is a love letter to human agency. Beneath the supernatural machinery and the mounting body count, the show is deeply, almost defiantly enamored with the human spirit. You see it in the way characters refuse to be flattened by their own histories, in the way tenderness blooms in the middle of massacres, in the way they keep lunging forward even as the timeline itself moves in reverse. The elation the series produces comes from a quiet but profound realization. Even in a world governed by accident and collision, the bonds people forge are genuine. The show understands that disorder is not the enemy of meaning. The disorder is the meaning. Every time a story you thought you understood reveals a dimension you hadn't suspected, that isn't disorientation. That is the closest a narrative can come to replicating what it actually feels like to be alive in a world that was never designed with you at its center. It is a reminder that life is messy, loud, and frequently unkind. But in the right company, There is no better show on Earth.